very loud, booming alien voice speaking.
Yeah.
So, but he talked about why Earth was an experiment, and he went back to Lemuria, to Atlantis. Lemuria came first.
So how
Lemuria,
long? So how long ago would that be?
Well, Atlantis was like 25,000 years ago. 25,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago, we're talking about Atlantis. We talk about Lemuria going back 150, 200,000 years more. I mean, you know, it goes way back. And what happened is when the planet became fertile for life, and there was all sorts of life, and the God gene or God or spirit or whatever you want to call it, I try not to get into all of the religious political bullshit, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to call it God, was seeding the planet. It was to watch the process of evolution. If you just put something in, you know, God is like the ultimate scientist. Put something in and let's observe and see what happens. Parts of God, you know, and God had started, you know, had created other species. There were other things. There are races that are older than man that existed in the universe, races that died out and things like this. And each one was a marker in the evolution of God, God's self, of learning. Because how does a God learn?
Through experience, through us, in a way, isn't it? Through the...
Yes.
Yeah.
So originally, Lemuria was here to Lemuria creating the physiological destruction of Lemuria was the fact, you know, and I'm just bringing this right down into, you know, like, you know, I've got a whole book about it. They can get the book if they want. You know, it's at weboflight.com, so they can go get it, or Amazon.com, or wherever. The books are there. It's all over the world. You can get the book. But in there, Lemuria failed because we started to become addicted to animal pleasures, and we basically defied the guiding principles of the universe, i.e. God and the angels. And if you look at that in the book, we actually tie that to some of the early chapters of the Old Testament.
Sure.
Like what was going on in the Old Testament. And really, the Old Testament started by talking about Lemuria. And then what happened is we then get to the place where that goes away. Lemuria goes down. Atlantis comes up. We're given a different set of criteria, and one of the things that happens is split-aparts are created because we were warned, and then when the destruction happened, you had a communicator part of the soul and you had a receiver part of the soul. They were all one part of the soul, and half was in the animal body and half was outside of the animal body, like getting the data, getting the information, keeping track of it. And when Lemuria destructed it, the soul was actually wrenched apart. And so that's where the whole notion that goes all the way back to Aristotle and Plato and the early Greek, you know, all of the early ones talk about split aparts. Because once we had a soul that was part of a larger single cell soul, part of God. And that was created. And so then we talked about that God had to create a housing unit, which is why you'll never find the actual missing link. God had to create a housing unit where things were taken from different animal species and different root races were created by the attachment that different soul groups had to different kinds of animal races. And again, you know, there's a whole thing in the book about how that breaks down and, you know, what group soul was attached to what animal or, you know, animal, fish, bird group, and why they became the four root races and how that falls down. I mean, but so Lemuria goes down, Atlantis comes up, we have these souls that are now stuck in an incarnational cycle that are working their way back to God, and they have split aparts, and we have another layer of souls which were not part of the destruction but were involved. We also are now having more extraterrestrial involvement in Atlantis. Earth has become the hottest spot in the universe because we're creating things that have never been created before. We have a process that's been going on, and so then we start talking about the creation of Atlantis. Atlantis, we're dealing more with the experiments. At some point continued. Technology, when technology exceeds spirituality, is what creates destruction.
Yeah, they both need to be in harmony together, don't they? Hand in hand, really.
So, yeah, and Atlantis, if we were baby as a species, as a soul group, if we were babily arrogant in Lemuria, we were supremely arrogant in Atlantis.
What was the humans like in Atlantis? I mean, what did they look like? How did they live?
Well, the Atlanteans, and it's so funny because the first time I ever got a vision of Atlantis when I was 17, and I didn't even know what Atlantis was. I was at a metaphysical circle group and we were talking, and somebody said the word Atlantis, and I went into, it's a longer story, but I'll keep it short. But I went into a vision and I saw Atlantis, and I didn't even know what it was. All I knew was when I came out of it, I knew that I had been there, and wherever it was beautiful and gone, and I was crying. And Atlantean beings were energy beings. So they were taller, and they coalesced into energy, but they were translucent. They could solidify into a form-like, but they really didn't have form. They would have enough form, which is why a lot of times you will see Atlanteans portrayed as having robes sometimes, because they could coalesce enough to have a light draping of something that would go on them to give them shape and form as they moved, but underneath it, it was just energy keeping it up. Think about almost as if you had a bunch of electromagnetic energy, and you threw something on it, and it was coalesced enough that the cloak could ride on the energy, but it's not really riding on a form.
Yeah.
Those were the Atlanteans, who were part of the group of the Lemurians who did not get split apart. They were still complete. The humans at this point, we're talking about early man. Early men. We're talking about Atlantis was the crown jewel of the earth, and the root races had been spread out, and we had things going on in, Egypt and Sumeria, and very, very early, and the Mayans, and the very, very early root of the cultures, all which were being guided by Atlantis to evolve, which is why we get glimpses and we get evidence of just truly spectacular technology existing in a culture 10 or 15,000 years ago. And they'll dig it up. They'll find it in a pyramid. They'll find something and they'll go, oh my God, how did they do this? I always remember the one that they found evidence that somebody had successful brain surgery and lived another 20 years. Back in pre-recorded history, they could tell by the skull they found that they had cut the skull open and it had healed and the person continued to grow. So they were doing successful brain surgery,
Everyone's so tall in this game. So tall.
I've brought the glowing cloth you've asked for.
It's a nanotech matter regenerator, in fact, but you have it. I can't believe it.
Here's that blanket.
Now then, let's see what this thing can do.
Asais, what the fuck did you do?
I thought I had calibrated correctly. Oh no, what have I done? I killed this poor human. The device doesn't work and you stole it against Poseidon's laws. What do we do now?
You're on your own.
This device is your only chance of stopping the sickness. You need to keep trying.
Yes, you're right. Not trying will just mean more innocent lives are lost. I think if I make some adjustments, I can get it to function on humans correctly.
Everyone seems to be looking much better. Well, almost everyone.
The device still needs work, but it has incredible potential. Poseidon won't be happy that we broke his law, but I'm glad you were the one to do it and not me. In any case, I'm eternally grateful for your help.
Back in pre-recorded history, they could tell by the skull they found that they had cut the skull open and it had healed, and the person continued to grow. I mean, so they were doing successful brain surgery, 12,000 years ago.
Yeah. So,
and go ahead.
No, good. I mean, they basically had technology, but from what I've read in various books, it seems that they utilised crystals for most of their power and energy.
Crystals, sound, light, those were all used.
Yeah.
Sound was used actually as a weapon. It was also used as a power generating tool.
Were they a spiritual race? With a few bad eggs, if you like, or were they just all arrogant? I mean, what was they actually like as a people? I mean, did they have a governing body that governed them?
Yes, yeah, and this is where and this was a confirmation I got. Basically, it really was broken into the same kind of groups. This is where a place, because entwined in the book is, I already had an Atlantis and Lemuria class put together based on the Casey materials prior to all of this additional stuff. So I got stuff that filled in some of the blanks, but what Casey talks about Atlantis, most of my channels agreed with was fairly accurate enough that they built on that, filled in those holes, and worked around it. But you had that, so, and I make that clear in the book. I mean, I don't claim, that I came out with stuff that Casey came out with, 80 years ago. Again, they filled in around the edges, and they gave us a wider perspective of stuff, which Casey never did. So with this, what we're talking about here is, yes, you had a ruling council. You had different groups that were in charge of different things. Think of ambassadors. You had ambassadors to what we're calling now the human race, ambassadors to the planet, to the ocean kingdoms, to the animal kingdoms, the plant kingdoms, just like that were observing, looking at it. You had some that went bad. You had some that got obsessed with power, like we don't see that today happening.
No, not really. Yeah, it's like history repeats itself.
And so we go through this thing, Ian, where we step up, and you have the people that say, might is right. These. It's so funny. These are like half-breeds.
Please help us!
Don't worry, I'm getting everyone out of here.
Didn't anyone teach you it's cruel to lie?
What? What's cruel is abducting and experimenting on these people.
Without sacrifice, there can be no progress. Without experimentation, there can be no perfection.
You're breaking Poseidon's law.
I am advancing knowledge for the betterment of Atlantis. Poseidon's lack of vision keeps us in darkness. But we are close. So very close.
Humans are not animals to be caged and tortured.
We created them to serve us. That is their sole purpose.
Let these people go.
It's too late for them. Project Olympus has already begun. One human escaped before the transformation was complete, and lives were lost. This won't happen again. Surely you understand.
Lyra. She took her own life after what you did to her.
So, you've seen the beast she becomes.
I'm getting these people out of here.
But don't you want to know what's behind this door?
Not really.
I won't play your little games. I'm getting these people out of here.
So, you would choose to let your small-minded morality hinder your progress?
What if I just killed you, set these people free, and broke through your stupid door?
You can't kill me, Cassandra.
Damn.
I can see you're struggling. What if I told you the greatest achievement in Atlantis is behind that door, and that we owe that achievement to you?
What are you talking about?
Through there is a path to immortality. For you. For us. Embrace your legacy. Forget these miserable humans. Abandon morality, and the answers to all your questions are just beyond that door.
Please! Save us or we'll die!
You will be reborn! Don't you want to know why you're really here? Free the people and this door will remain closed to you forever. Pass through, however, and it will lock behind you. These rats will be mine. What will it be, the Gusties? Their lives? Or your destiny?
Fuck your door. I promised the little boy I'd bring his parents home, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Very disappointing. No matter. If there are two things Atlantis has in ample supply, it is adamant and humans.
Come on, let's get out of here.
Thank you, the Gusties.
I'll get to see Alcon again. Hurry!
I kind of want to still know what's behind the door. I saw you there, Minerva.
There were those people in Atlantis that enslaved the humans, no different than what we do to animals. You know, the slavery started in Atlantis. You know, long before Africa and and you guys and us and deep in the land of cotton were bringing them over in boats. Slavery was alive and well in Atlantis. And the thing is, if you were human, you were a slave because you were not the superior race.
Yeah.
The Atlanteans were the superior race.
Yeah. I've kind of come across that as well. So they became almost a bit arrogant, really.
That
because
must
they
be
were
Amphiris.
No, we're okay.
Why so many guards?
Let her pass.
Hey! Jesus. What did he do?
Amphiris, if this is how you treat humans, I can see why you need so many guards.
These aren't humans. They are animals. An animal should be in cages.
Dead bodies of civilians outside, a tortured corpse at your feet. The only animal I see around here is you.
A human did this to me while I slept. When they came to kill me, I survived. But they slaughtered my daughter like an animal. Humans don't act with logic or reason.
Good or bad, they are driven by a will to survive.
A trait we implanted to ensure efficiency. But that will become a kindled flame of insurrection. You led a rebellion yourself in Elysium. So I know you understand. If we don't act, the city will burn and many more lives will be lost.
I don't see an army marching on Poseidon.
This one said they plan to launch an attack. Someone needs to destroy the resistance before that happens.
That's not a small request. Despite what you think, all humans aren't a threat.
It is the only path I see. But you are the Dicastis. Only you can choose the correct course of action.
Killing people will just make the fire spread faster. Now, if we destroy their supplies and their weapons, they can't oppose the issue.
I admire your optimism. But I fear it would not be enough. However, it's your decision to make.
Just leave it to me. I'll send a message they won't forget.
Very well. You'll find the traitorous humans at an abandoned farmstead. Return to me when the situation is resolved.
I enjoy the fact that I basically carte blanche to do everything that I possibly want without people questioning me.
The humans are bringing war whether we want it or not, Poseidon.
They should after what you've done.
You mean what they've forced us to do? Poseidon worries about the sun and his solar floral regeneration project. Catastrophe is coming for us. On that we agree. But there is only one catastrophe. Humanity.
You can't trust Eta. He's a lunatic. You have no idea the monsters he's trapped in his hidden lair.
It was hidden only to Poseidon. My wife knew everything about it.
Wow.
Hybrid. Project Olympus was my idea.
The end of a cycle in Atlantis doesn't have to be a catastrophe.
It's far worse. We've detected changes in the surface of the sun. If we don't prepare...
If we don't prepare, humans will kill us all. The only ecological catastrophe we face is the one we created ourselves.
When I got here, Poseidon said I was where I belonged. Someone tell me why I'm really here, now!
Such sadness. She's even more human than I expected. Eta, answer her.
Gladly. In you, we found opportunity. Imagine the possibilities if we duplicated your hybrid form. We could employ our technology to control your mind. You, hybrid, can be used to craft Juno's ultimate weapon.